Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. I've got a new tier list here today. Today we're going to be ranking all of the boss fights from the 3 Insomniac Spider-Man games. That's Marvel Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Marvel Spider-Man 2 so far. I do admit, maybe I don't have every boss fight on here, or maybe I have too many, because some of them, like when they're different stages, or if it's the same enemy but they're different, I included it twice. So, yeah, let's just get into it. Oh, it's Kingpin. Kingpin's the first boss fight. He's fine. It's a tutorial. It's to teach you how to counter and shoot webs and all that fun. Nothing too special. We're going to do the story bosses first, then the DLC and side quests. So you fight Kingpin, and then it's a while until the next one, and it's Shocker. Shocker's an alright one. Probably say B as well. He's nothing too memorable. He's a lot of dodging and webbing and all that fun. And then I included this because I think it's memorable enough. And this is the truck sequence where you're fighting Mr. Negative and his goons along the side and on top of the truck as they're getting away with the Devil's Breath. I think it's a pretty neat sequence. I'm kind of filling up the B tier here. And then you fight him at the subway, Mr. Negative. And that's also... Oh, that one might actually venture down into C. Like, it's pretty on the rails. You just dodge left, right, up, down, and then, punch him. Yeah, that's where a lot of the Marvel Spider-Man 1 boss fights are pretty scripted. Like, there's not much variety. You kind of have to beat them in the patterns that they have. And then the Sinister Six assemble, and you fight Electro and Vulture at the same time. That one's actually really cool fight. I'd probably put it in A. You have to dodge Electro and web up his generators while also dodging Vulture and throwing, the wings back at him, the feathers that he throws at you. Whoops. I might have skipped over. I can't remember if Scorpion is before or after Electro. But the Scorpion fight, I'll put an A. It's like the dream sequence. It's reminiscent of the Ra's al Ghul fight and all that in like Arkham City, where it's you're fighting him in the wasteland, all while hallucinating. Then you've got Scorpion and Rhino, where you have to fight the two of them at the same time. And I actually like this one. Maybe S tier? I don't know. That's where I think the boss fights in the first Spider-Man aren't the greatest. Like, they didn't quite have it figured out yet. But we'll say S for this series. That's it. You've caught all of the Sinister Six. And all that's left is Doc Ock. Dr. Otto Octavius. And this fight's hard, because this is another one where, I guess A? Like, it's very on rails. Maybe a bit too much on rails. No, I'll leave it in A. And that's the story of Marvel Spider-Man. And if we're looking for the DLC, you'll notice I have two hammerheads here. That's because one is when you fight him, like in the regular mech suit, and one is the cyborg hammerhead. I'm just gonna go ahead and drop these here. The cyborg fight is just a pain in the ass. And not very fun. And a bit of a letdown as like the finale of the DLC. Versus then regular Hammerhead is just... He's cool because you at least have to web him up or hit him. No, you can't web him up. You have to hit him with things to stun him. And with that, Taskmaster is a similar fight. I'd probably put him up in A. I remember him being pretty cool, pretty fun, how you have to web him up or throw stuff at him. You can't just hit him. He'll just counter you. I put the little mini fight with Sable. That's probably D tier. It's nothing really. You just dodge her shots, and then web zipper when you can. Same thing. Tombstone, though. I really like the Tombstone fight. I think the mechanic of him and his goons being like invulnerable until you hit them with something like an object you throw is pretty cool. But I don't know. I don't think it's S tier cool. I think it might be B tier cool. Like, I think all of these are cool, but they're not like groundbreaking or game changing. Like the only fight I really like, I think I'll put this. I like the duo fights. I think the fighting. I think the fighting two bosses at a time is really cool. Oh, and then I put Screwball here, and I put Screwball down in D, just because Screwball doesn't really have a boss fight, but you do have to like chase her and jump through the hoops and all that fun. Well, not fun. That's why it's down in D. And then if we're looking at Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, not a ton of boss fights in this game. There's what? You've got the Rhino at the beginning, which is fine. And then you've got the Prowler fight. That one's pretty cool. The Rhino fight is cool, but it's also just a tutorial, pretty on the rails boss fight. Versus the Prowler fight, you've got both Prowler and his clones, and then like when he goes invisible and that kind of stuff, or when you turn invisible. Then there's Roxxon Rhino. Roxxon Rhino's a fun. I think I'd put it in A. Just because Roxxon Rhino's fun because you have to keep hitting him over and over again because you have to break off the armor using your Venom strikes. And then you get the Tinkerer. I'd probably put that in A. The fight with Tinker is pretty neat. It's nothing too crazy, but it is fun having to dodge everything and zip over to her and beat her and then get out of the way before she starts throwing stuff at you. But yeah, that's it for the main story. Miles Morales is a lot shorter of a game. It only has a couple, the ones you see right here. And then it does have the Vulture fight, which is just the same fight as the Electro and Vulture one from the first game. It just doesn't have Electro. You know, it's like a training module from Peter. So, I put it in A. I was gonna say, I think it's a highlight of the game. I think it's cool. I think it's fun. But then Spider-Man 2, that's where we get into the meat. Oh my goodness, y'all. I missed the final fight with Mr. Negative from Spider-Man 1. I forgot that before you go fight Otto, you fight him again. This fight's pretty cool-ish. Nothing really to it. He's got a better fight on this list. So then we move into Marvel Spider-Man 2. A whole big mixed bags. They totally reworked the boss fight mechanics. You know, they added the health bars. And I think the health bars add so much because they give you the freedom to do whatever you want. You just have to gnaw their health away. Versus how, like I said, kind of in Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales, like every boss kind of had a pattern that you had to, you know, okay, you dodge and then you throw the feathers back at Vulture and then you web strike him. Versus how here it's however you can nail away their health bar. And that's why I think everybody loves the Sandman tutorial fight. I will be real with y'all. I don't really love it. I almost want to put it down and C because it's so on the rails. You can't do anything. That's the one boss fight in the game where you do have to do what it tells you. You have to throw the water at him and then you have to Venom strike him. And then there's a pretty big gap until your next boss fight with the Lizard. And that one was all over the marketing, and there's a reason for it. It's really cool. Hello, everyone. It's the next day. I had to stop the recording. I'm back now. And the Lizard fight is pretty cool. It's like the big action sequence that the game has been marketed off of and sold. And I think the health bars in the game really help the fights in Spider-Man 2 because it gives them more variety. Like in Spider-Man 1, every villain kind of had a pattern or something you had to do. You know, you had to hit them with this or web them up versus you now have like the symbiote abilities and the arms and Miles's venom strikes, and you can kind of just win the fight however you want using whatever skills. You know, you have to dodge and parry and things like that. I think the lizard fight is really good because it's honestly just an all-out brawl however you can beat him. And then let's go ahead and do the Martin Lee 2 fight. This one, I maybe put it. I want to say it's kind of on par with the first game's fight with him, except you're playing as Miles. It is fun and there is a decent pattern to it. And again, those health bars. Uh, I think it's fun. A lot of people don't like this boss fight. I think narratively it's a little weird, but I think its inclusion in the game is good. And then it also then leads into Pete's fight with Craven. And the Craven fight is pretty cool. You know, he's sicking dogs after you. He's got the bell that you have to constantly keep webbing up because you're wearing the symbiote at this point. He'll go invisible, but you can still kind of see him. There's just a lot going on in that fight. Plus, I really like the setting of like the destroyed manor, and he's sicking his goons after you, and you use your symbiote surge to just wreck shop on all of the goons that, you know, interrupt the fight. And then, yeah, after that, you've got Pete versus Miles, which is. No, who am I kidding? That one's a really cool fight for story reasons and gameplay and just nerddom. You know, everybody's wanted to. We all knew it was gonna come. The minute we saw the black suit in the game, we knew you were gonna have a boss fight where it was Miles versus Pete, and they duke it out, and it's pretty cool. There's a lot of fun dialogue. Like if you go invisible as Miles, you know, Pete, as like being possessed by the symbiote, will say, like, we can still see you. And then after all that, Pete realizes he needs to get the suit off and he takes it. And then you become Venom. And as Venom, you fight Kraven again. And this fight is pretty cool. I don't think it's as cool as the fight as when you're playing as Peter, just because you can't really lose the fight when you're playing as Venom. Like, you just beat the shit out of him. So that's the only reason I wouldn't put it in S, is it's almost too easy. It's a really cool action scene, but it's not as maybe exciting as that fight as Peter, you know, out in the mansion in the woods at night. And yeah, after that, you kind of. And after all that, the city gets taken over by symbiotes, and eventually at the end of the game, you have to fight Venom. This one's clearly an S tier fight. It's so cool. It's the largest fight in the game. I think it's got 4 stages. Like I said, they have health bars now, and each health bar at the bottom has the little dots that tell you how many stages there are, and it's really cool. If I remember off the top of my head, you fight him twice as Pete and then twice as Miles. Story wise, fighting him as Miles isn't that, you know, cool or anything, but just because Miles doesn't have that connection. But Miles is overall the more fun Spider-Man to play as, so I think it is interesting that they made him the final boss fight. But yeah, you've got Venom who can fly and everything, and you've got the sonic barrels. And just a really cool fight in the Emily May Foundation. And that's it for the story. The story is a lot shorter, as you can see, a lot less fights, but I guess you could say better quality. Quality over quantity when it comes to the boss fights in Spider-Man 2. I really like all of them, except maybe some of the. Oh my goodness. I was saving the side quest fights for last, and I realized I left Scream down here in the side quest. Again, A tier. I really like the Scream fight. And again, the smack talk coming from MJ, as I'm sure you've seen on TikTok and Twitter, is insane. And that fight's really hard, but not terribly hard. And then the 2 side quests. I'd put the Wraith fight down in C. It's pretty simple. That one maybe has a bit of a pattern to it. You just kind of got to dodge her and then web and hit her. you know, smack her with stuff around the room. Not as exciting. Versus probably my favorite boss fight of all these games is the Miles versus Mysterio. Why this is a side quest, I couldn't tell you. This should have been in the actual game. Because in this fight, it's crazy. You know, you've got the multiple Mysterios that you have to web zip and hit him out of the air and slowly wear down his health bar until you can get to the actual one. And it's in the snow globe and in the, where is it, Coney Island. And it's just a really cool fight. You know, the scenery is cool and the fight is cool. I love Mysterio. I love Quentin Beck. And so I'm so glad he made it into this game, and his boss fight is probably my favorite. So now, if we're looking to break down these tiers and make them a little more refined, like I said, this one's probably my favorite. Yeah, this probably looks about right. The Mysterio fight is so good, but I love these duo fights from the first game. I wish they had had more of those, especially with the health bars. That could have been interesting. And the Venom fight, just because of how big and crazy and hard it is, it's so hard. I died. I fully admit I did not play on like ultimate difficult, whatever the hardest difficulty is, because I'm here to have fun. But, and Lizard is cool. Maybe put him down lower, but higher than the Craven fight. And then if you look back on A tier, let's see. Maybe a little lower. Like the Doc Ock fight is cool story wise, but it's very much you just have to, you know, throw stuff at him, web him up, and then, you know, get off the floor when the floor is lava. I would definitely say both the Martin Lee fights are more exciting than the Kingpin. I really like Tombstone's fights. His one fight. The truck sequence is really cool. Rhino's really cool, but he's more of a tutorial boss. Yeah, that probably looks about right. Then if we look at C tier, probably looks something like that. I don't know. Maybe Sandman doesn't belong in C. I go back and I don't really like how on the rails it is. You know, there's not too much creativity or freedom in the fight. You just have to keep throwing the barrels. But it is a really cool action sequence. Like, you know, cooler than the Kingpin or Shocker fights. But these are at least you can play them and fight. Maybe Kingpin come down and you go up. Yeah, something like that, maybe. He's more entertaining than him. And then, yeah, I think Detroit is already in order. Don't really like those fights. So, yeah, that's where I'd rank the boss fights so far in the first 3 Marvel Spider-Man Insomniac games. Let me know in the comments below what your ranking would be, or use this tier down in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.